Hey everybody, this is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook video review slash commentary on Echo, which is a new show, a new indigenous centered action comic book show from Marvel that just released this week. It's about 5 episodes. It's almost like a TV show. It's almost like a movie broken up into 5 shorter TV episodes. I would say you can easily watch it all in one go. And yeah, so I'm gonna kind of comment on this show and some of my thoughts on it, and kind of obviously branch out into some other topics. But first I just want to say that it's always good to at least see some kind of as a native person, because this is coming from my personal perspective, Native Hawaiian specifically. But it's always good to see a new show that has better representation. I mean, representation isn't everything, but having some more native people doing things in the forefront, and and also our stories being told in a more authentic way than not is always better. Obviously on the scale of I don't know, Pocahontas to well, I like Res Dogs, and I like I'm a big fan of the Reservation Dogs. If you take away nothing else from this is my covert agenda is to get another Reservation Dogs like show started up. And one of my first Reservation Dogs is a really good indigenous centered TV show, which with many of the same cast members and people involved, and the location is I think it's basically the same, if I'm not mistaken. It's like Reservation Dogs, Echo is filmed in much of it in Oklahoma on reservations, and not on reservations as well. And I kind of, one of my first reaction when I first saw the first 2 episodes was Echo. This is like a season 2 extra high budget comic book action version of Reservation Dogs, because it literally has since I'm already on that topic, it literally has at least 5, possibly more, return indigenous cast or cast members from Reservation Dogs. And just to kind of go through that, let me see if I can get that up here. Let me see, cast of Echo. So yeah, Devery Jacobs plays one of the main character's sister. The main character's played by Maya Lopez / Echo is played by Alakwa Cox, who is also native. Also native and deaf, and an amputee. Echo's character is missing the below the knee portion of one leg, and that's Alaka Cox, as far as I know. That's Holly and I were thinking maybe that's CG, but that's not. That's all actually the actress. Alaka Cox is not in Reservation Dogs. Obviously Vincent D'Onofrio is the Kingpin. So Kingpin from Daredevil, and Daredevil makes an appearance. Charlie Cox making an appearance. No relation to Alaka Cox as far as I know. But Daredevil's Charlie Cox, who also showed up in She-Hulk, which I have a video about that from about a year and a bit ago, which I also liked. So Daredevil, Kingpin, those are not Reservation Dogs cast members. Zan McClarnon, who plays Big, the Light Horseman in Reservation Dogs, shows up. That's Echo's dad. Tantu Cardinal, who is the grandmother character, or she's not a Reservation Dogs. Graham Greene is a longtime indigenous actor. He was in Res Dogs, among many other things. So there's that, and then there's also there is let me get all the cast. Dallas Goldtooth, Cousin Biscuits, Cody Lightning. uh, fun fact. There's this is like you're probably not gonna hear this except on an indigenous review. Not that Uncle Rico. The Cousin Biscuits actor Cody Lightning from Echo, um, is in this video called Uncle Rico. Okay, I can't show it right now because it's like Uncle. um, it's Snotty Nose Res Kids is an indigenous hip hop artist, and they have this video called Uncle Rico, and the main Uncle Rico, which is kind of a joke on I think it's a joke on Napoleon Dynamite, because Uncle Rico is a character, but Uncle Rico is played by Biscuits, this guy. Where's the picture of where's Uncle? Where is he though? Anyways, but yeah, these are all native cast members. I'm like way deep down the rabbit hole too early. But anyways, so long story short, so yeah, it's also got Dallas Goldtooth, is in there in Echo. So it's good to see him again. He's also at least was head of the Indigenous Environmental Action Network, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember the exact name. But yeah, he was he's another indigenous actor. He plays the ancestor in Reservation Dogs. Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna fall too deep down this hole too early if I keep going. But yeah, long story short, there's like lots and lots of native people in Echo. There are the director is also an indigenous person. Oh, this is like, I guess this is like the main graphic for it. The director is also an indigenous person. Is also a trans person. I just recently found out when I was researching that. Sydney Freeland directed and executive produced the series with Alako Cox, Marvel Studios. She was added live, and then I was exploring the grittier side of Marvel. I wanted. So many fans were surprised to learn that the main character is deaf, assassin, and is also amputee, as it said. And so I thought it was interesting. Like a lot of the show, the director was saying was like, it was kind of based on some of it's the actress's life, right? The original Echo is not. I think it's Blackfoot in the comic books. The original Echo character is an indigenous character, but is not a Choctaw character like in the TV show. So that was a choice that was made in collaboration with there's actually multiple indigenous communities, but most obviously it's the Choctaw Nation, the Choctaw people in Oklahoma were a major collaborator. That was where a lot of it was filmed. Like I said, I swear this is like the same sets as Res Dogs, a lot of them. Okay, that's not the best. It's not the best article, but I'm trying. Let me go back to the director's bio. Yeah, Sydney Freeland. Yeah, and so she's also trans and indigenous. What's that? She's trans and indigenous filmmaker. She's done several other films. She was born in Gallup, New Mexico, United States, and she is Navajo. Running director, Hoverboard. Drunktown's Finest is a show. There's an ABC article somewhere down here. You can read about it. There was an ABC article or a segment called Drunktown USA, which is all about New Mexico, and it was kind of painted indigenous communities in a bad light. I mean, this is not new. Obviously, there's been a long history of talking about all the drunk Indians, right? Or it's the drunk Native Americans. And then there was this ABC News segment, or 2020 segment on ABC News called Drunktown USA. And then so the director Cindy Freeland, who is Native, responded to that, kind of not responded, but like made a movie that was a send up of that, or kind of a response to that, which is Drunktown's Finest, the second venture into filmmaking. So I thought that was interesting. Like, so there's already a history of having made movies from an indigenous perspective. I would say like more, and this was got accolades at the Sundance Film Festival, and because we're talking about Echo, or I ostensibly I'm talking about Echo, but the way I do things is I'm not really ever talking about one thing. That's just indigenous talking. We're talking about everything everywhere all at once. It's spiralic temporality. You know what I'm saying? That's just how it goes. Everything is decompartmentalized. But anyways, we're talking story. In the Maori would say we're having a yarn. Anyways, but the Drunktown. So there's a history of already like dealing with indigenous issues, like there are like problems with alcohol is a problem, but this is like a problem. A lot of this is not necessarily indigenous people's particularly fault. It's a history of violence and colonialism and purposeful insertion, pushing particular substances and particular placements and particular supporting certain economics. In Res Dogs, they talk about the white man's bullets, which is what having the food deserts and having lots of not very good junk food available, and not so much healthy food, right, in the food deserts. So, I'm from one of these food deserts, so and so in this kind of show, like, there's already been more serious examinations of that. Why am I talking about that? Is because Echo is an action movie. It is a comic book show. It's not. It's good. It's good, but it's a Marvel movie. It's a Marvel TV show. It's there are grittier comic book shows, but there's still comic book shows. There's still kids stuff. Let's be real. Let's get real right now. No one person can fight hundreds and hundreds of attackers with guns with their hands. It's fun. It's party time. It's Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? And that's great. And there are serious topics that come up, right? That's not like it does deal with some, but it's never going to be as actually addressing real concerns as something like Drunktown's Finest, or Reservation Dogs. If you really want the indigenous perspective, I would just this is like, as I said, this is kind of like all the Reservation Dogs cast gets to come back. Elora Danan, that's Devery Jacobs, and all of Big and all of the uncles and the grandpas, all of the family from Res Dogs. They did their serious work, and now it's time to party. That's like, I almost feel like Echo is like them just partying. They're acting, but it's like, we're gonna be jumping off of trains. We got Iron Man eyeglass gadgets, and a lot of money to be like punching people through walls and shit. Like, we're gonna have like 6-minute choreographed John Wick, Captain America fighting Thanos choreographed. Okay, maybe he's not fighting Thanos. Captain America fighting Loki. Choreographed fights. Or it's more like Daredevil. Daredevil had like long, uncut, highly choreographed fights, right? But that's not easy. That's like, it takes a bit more. You got a lot of training. You got a lot of martial arts. There's a lot of wires. And there's CG. There's not a ton. It's not as much CG as like Avengers, but or like Black Panther. But it's an action movie. It's an action show. It's a lot of it is that. That's like, I would say, like, and it's really good. The action is like definitely like good. Like it's high. It's you know, it takes a lot nowadays. I'm so desensitized. I'm like I can't. I don't get. I fall asleep during action sequences. Let's be real. I watch like I'm like can't pay attention. But like, you know, when you watch the choreography and you're like, you know, and this is often a selling point for TV shows. Like The Witcher had that initial the first season, or had the first episode. You have like that long choreograph uncut. They're like, wow, that's a lot of training and that's a lot of time people took to. It's like watching somebody doing like an amazing Olympic, amazing Olympic, you know, gymnastics feat. Like, wow, you have to really physically train yourself to do that thing, right? And it's not that graphic, like, because, you know, with CG you can do almost anything, but watching people like do this amazing dance with like 10 people moving and jumping at the right time, you know, dodging that kick and like being thrown through a wall, you know, that's a lot. It's like, so like that part of it, like that's just some of the best parts of the show. And you have to, you know, you have to respect this. They said like they had a limited time. They had a limited time to do the action sequences in Echo, and they still got it. They still got it done. I would have thought like, you know, it's there's a fight scene inside of a roller skating rink that's like that one's also the feels. I just want to pull that up right now. As an eldritch indigenous millennial who listened to can we get that? Can we get the roller skating rink? No, no. Yes, this, yeah. Inside the episode 3, the roller skating rink. Yeah, this one was like really great. But you know what it was? It's because Echo, who is you know, is an amputee, right? He's missing a leg, as I said, below the knee, and also deaf and indigenous. Is fighting like in at least once per episode, and there's 5 episodes, fighting like tons of goons, tons of henchmen, you know, all the kingpins, bowling, all of the kingpins, apartheid South. This is one apartheid South Africa guy, and he comes in wearing a tourist hat to the powwow, and he's like, "Where's all the indigenous party?" And I was like, those are like all the you know, the tourists in Hawaii when we're native Hawaiians tell you stop showing up and being annoying. During a pandemic and during imperial colonial, you know, subjugation, and you know, and I was like, I really like that part. And anyway, I'm way off my topic, I know. So she has to fight tons of these kingpin goons. She like bowls lots of strikes, knocking all of the bowling pins down of the kingpin, right? All of the crooked New York gangster pins get bowled down, like I don't know how many times. And in this scene in the roller skating rink, she like fights with, you know, the skee ball. I mean, I spent my early childhood, you know, I don't know if this is just an indigenous thing or what, but you know, I spent my early childhood. I mean, you know, because we got we had like the 90s entertainment arcade, and they're still playing Boys to Men, you know, they're still playing Brandy, you know, they're still playing, you know, the I shouldn't sing, otherwise we're gonna get DMCA copyright problems on this video, but you know, it's like, you know, it's go to the end of the road, you know, and there's like, you know, my sweetheart is a centerfold, you know, there's like, and they're like, there's a scene in that where they're like the indigenous roller skating rink manager is like being asked by Echo, like, why are you still playing this 90s, why are you still playing 90s like R&B and like, you know, this music. And I was talking to Holly about that, because Holly is my partner. Holly spent a lot of time growing up in Canada, listening to indigenous run radio stations, and they would play the same kind of stuff. They would play, you know, it was like, I was like, yeah, R&B, you know, yeah, your Brandy. I think Holly first got introduced to Aaliyah on that, and then you had also you know, just lots of this like music. And then on other stations you'd have country and folk, right? But particularly, and like I was a native Hawaiian, I remember I was listening when I was in the 5th, 6th, 7th grade, listening to like lots of this like R&B coming out of LA, and which wasn't being listened to by the United States occupation people in Hawaii, let's just put it that way. in our native Hawaiian country of Hawaii. And so, it's kind of like this thing. And then, so a lot of that is like still around. It's like, and somebody, it's like, why are you still playing this from the 90s? But all the native people are still smiling. Everyone's still smiling. Don't you see? Don't you see everybody's still into this? And it's like, this is like me, like listening to like 90s music remixes, in 2024, which is what I do in the evening. Anyways, okay, this is like not necessarily what people probably are here for, but I'm indulging myself. But anyway, so Echo fights in a roller skating rink, and like fights with ski balls. Like I used to play the ski ball so much, like cracking people's head with those ski balls, flying. This is not just indigenous people had ski balls. Everybody had arcade games. You had your Mortal Kombat 2. You had your claw game. You had your the Terminator, or what was that? Sunset Riders. I swear it's Sunset Riders. I don't know if that's canon, but she pulls. It's either Area 51, House of the Dead, or Sunset Riders arcade game. With the light guns, and she like rips the light guns off and is like whipping the bad guys with the light guns. That whole part was very it reminded me of like the old school Jackie Chan. It reminded me like the old school Jackie Chan fight scenes. Anyways, so it was all like very well done and very well coordinated, and what else was I gonna say about that? So I mean, there's lots to like about it. The action is good, the acting is very well done. Vincent D'Onofrio is always scary as hell, as the Kingpin. They open up, they explore more of his background and what makes him actually tick. So he's not just like a kind of like unintelligible monster, kind of mastermind, manipulative, eldritch, horror. He's kind of like more like you kind of see like where he comes from, like, and they actually go back to Kingpin's childhood, and his relationship to Echo is and this really kind of deeply messed up violence based relationship where they only speak in violence. So that works out. I thought that part was really strong in Echo. Daredevil doesn't make a appearance. At some point, I suppose, I don't know if I'll do that yet, but at some point I might address the some people's responses to Echo, which has been it's hurting their ears. The resounding hit of Echo is let's say not music but a cacophony to their ears, but mostly because they can't deal with I don't know, it's this very strange reality, which is that sometimes you have female and then also indigenous superheroes. They had the same problems with Prey, and who I'm beating around the bush to not mention exactly who I'm talking about, because I don't really want to. It's not really worth mentioning. But you know who we're talking about. The same crowd that was mad about Prey, they're mad about She-Hulk. They're mad about anytime. You put a not white man character as the action movie make believe, Hollywood, really good punch and kicker. Let's be real. That's what this is. This is Fantasyland punch and kicker. And then if it's not a white guy, then they call it illogical, unreal, and it's not. I don't even know. It's not. And then there'll be 100-page debates about whether Echo is capable of kicking and punching that guy. And I could beat Echo with my martial arts degree that I got from Reddit and 4chan, and the worst, darkest recesses of YouTube manosphere, alpha testosterone peddling, men going their own way ideology. I don't know what to say about that. I took a look at it because it's one of my indigenous friends was like, oh my god, look at what they're saying about Echo, and I'm like, I can't look at that anymore. So I was just like, I have like 5 separate She-Hulk videos just about that, I think. So maybe, I also have a Prey video that's just about Prey. In fact, I have 52. This is the brief. I don't sell Skillshare or generative AI therapy or generative AI YouTube video making software as my in-game in video monetization. However, I do have other videos you can look at, and one of them is on speaking of indigenous female character action movies. I do have one on Prey somewhere in the one video per week. Yeah, here it is. Yeah. This Prey actually I think is actually very similar. Has a lot of similarities. Obviously it's an indigenous character. That's an indigenous female character. It's a lot of it's action. It's Prey set in the 1700s. It's a Predator movie, so it is an established Western Hollywood. And I believe Alien vs Predator is comic book based. I forget if it was a comic book before or after that, but it is at least now, right? So Prey is also an action comic book movie, obviously starring Arnold Schwarzenegger originally, and then now it was converted into now it has instead of a white guy, it has a indigenous woman main character, and in Prey, I almost was waiting to see if the actress who played what's her name, the actress who played the Prey main character would show up in Echo. I feel like she could show up. She could show up in if they make more Echo, she could show up. She showed up in Res Dogs. She was in Reservation Dogs. Like, why can't she show up in Echo? It's a missed opportunity. Like Echo and what's her name? Sure, Holly will find it for me. That's what Amber Midthunder, the daughter of another Midthunder who was a actor who was never allowed to shine because of racism. Anyways, so Amber Midthunder's character, she does show up in Reservation Dogs, like I said, and so you could have Amber Midthunder, the ultimate survival. It's actually, like the way that like her character is really good at using strategy and has all of these strengths, and then like all the guys in the show are like talking how awesome and tough they are, but it's kind of like it's doing too much showboating and not enough actual like putting in the work to get the skills, and like paying attention, observing. Actually, like what the Amber Midthunder's character excels at in Prey is very similar to what Echo excels at, which is at observing, right? And like noticing, like Amber Midthunder notices like how the Predator moves, and is very keen at like watching, using the environment that this character understands very well, and is using that environment to create traps, get distract and confuse the opponent to get them stuck in a particular position. And and Echo's character is like can't hear it, so it has to be very good like watching and observing, among other, also good at martial arts as well. Kingpin has all the money, right, to pay for all of the training, and it's like gives Echo the the best martial arts training. And she literally, like, I mean, it makes total sense because he's like literally raised by the ultra violent criminal mastermind of New York, played by a Private Pile. I whenever I see Vincent D'Onofrio, I just think of Full Metal Jacket, and then him with his Kubrick stare. But anyway, he was already scary when he was 20. I think that's how old he was when he made that, around there. Anyway, so but Echo's character is like really is a fighter, is an action hero. Was already, I hadn't seen the Hawkeye show. I saw a good, I haven't seen all of Daredevil. I'm not sure. The 2015 Daredevil with Charlie Cox. but I think as I know, as I understand, like Echo showed up in, you know, showed up in the Hawkeye show, and Hawkeye also, you see Hawkeye come back for a moment, um, in Echo, and so you have, you know, it's a character that's kind of established as being a fighter already, and sorry, I lost my train of thought. Um, yeah, Ember Midthunder, and so, you know, and so it's really like a show that is entertaining. It well, I haven't talked about the other indigenous aspects of it. There are many scenes. I don't have enough time today to be going through all of them, but there's a lot of scenes where Echo goes back to he's kind of in like a dream time. Let me see if what would it be called? Not that. Echo the show Ancestors. There's like one thing in particular, like one of the really impactful parts of it. Okay, I don't know if I'll be able to find it. There's a scene. Yeah, well, this is one of the ancestors. There are several scenes where Echo, the ancestors of Echo, right, and this is one of them, is visiting, you know, Echo in times of in times of difficulty, and at various times throughout the show. And the stories of like the first woman, which comes from, you know, actual Choctaw specific worldview and their own stories, right? So I mean, at least the positive thing is that at least Echo, they took the time to, as I recall, I think the director said initially there was this kind of pan-indigenous Echo background, which, you know, I mean, this you know, this is a native perspective, so I'll tell you what I think. And so, you know, let me see if I can get the actual quote so I don't mistake that. I'll probably be able to get that. Yeah. Yeah. So Echo director Cindy Freeland on Marvel's first deaf Native American badass. Yeah, there's some very cool Native American imagery and iconography in the comic books, but it's just that. It's just cool imagery. There isn't specificity behind it, and that's not a fault of the illustrators or the writers of the comic book. But I think that was one of the things that really jumped out at me. It's like, oh, this is a very just sort of generic pan-indigenous expression of a character. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. So from the comic book, you know, which was, you know, made years and years ago. You know, Pocahontas, you know, we said the R slur. People thought capitalism in the U.S. were the best thing in the world. You know, that Israel never did anything wrong. And then also people made Pocahontas. Many mistakes were made, you know, And then there was pan-indigenous expression, generic pan-indigenous native characters were a thing, you know. As an Navajo writer and director, Freeland was excited to take on the project and make much needed changes. When you first come aboard a project, it's like you pitch this to a studio, your vision, your intent with the series, and how it's going to look and feel. In one of the first conversations with executive producer Kevin, I'm not sure how to say that person's name, Kevin Feige, I sort of explained to him, like, listen, I grew up reading comic books and I grew up going to powwows, but those two things never overlapped or intersected with each other. So to have the chance to smash those two aspects of my personal experience together was an incredibly exciting and surreal sort of moment. And response was like, yes, let's lean into that. All of those things, go, go, go. The miniseries Echo is from Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. Freeland consulted and built a relationship with the community to bring the story to life. The response from the Choctaw Nation has been overwhelmingly positive. One of the things I'm most jealous of is actually Chief Gary Batten, who's the chief of the Choctaw Nation. We screened during their annual powwow, and at the powwow, he addressed the 1,200 people that were in attendance, and he says, I just had the chance to watch the first couple episodes of Marvel's new series Echo, and I'm not going to say this is Marvel's first Native American hero or the first Native American villain. This is Marvel's first deaf Native American badass. This is true. Yeah, and it is a typical Marvel production, intense action scenes and funny moments. But what makes it different is that the story is told through the completely silent perspective of the main character. As many people have mentioned, including some of Holly's friends, there's a lot of very interesting silent scenes where the scene, because Echo's deaf, you'll be hearing the gunshots and the punches and the meaty slaps and the kicks and walls being slammed into, and then that thumping action movie orchestral soundtrack, and then all of a sudden it'll kind of go kind of silent except for maybe like a heartbeat and some muted, it's basically like you're not hearing anything almost, and you're just seeing the action. So it's like from Echo's perspective, and the way that works out is really the way that was worked into the show also adds like another novel. It makes it new and fresh in a way that's something you haven't really seen. I think I haven't really seen such a thing. I mean, there's movies where they'll edit the sound, and like Saving Private Ryan was just one that just popped into my head. Where the bomb goes off and then you'll hear like the high pitched like tinnitus ringing for 10 seconds or so, and then it's just like, you can't hear anything because the character is momentarily deaf, right? When they had their head next to a grenade that exploded, from just 6 feet away or something. And but it's like the way it plays out in Echo is very, it's like you're seeing the world from Echo's perspective, and the way it's and there's also actual sign language. There's actual sign language that all the actors had to learn, and that the way the sign language works into the movie is it impacts everyone's performance. It's not just like Echo does sign language and some people do some sign language. Like everyone is forced to like act in a new way. They're like they're making their hands sound. They're like sometimes they're saying the words out loud. Sometimes they're just mouthing the words, but it makes it like it adds another level to the it adds another layer of freshness to that, because the whole show has constant sign language from all the characters. Also, interestingly, Kingpin never learns sign, and eventually he does get called out on that, right? Because all of Echo's actual family, right? All of Echo's actual family, all the native people that are like, right? It's almost like those who took the time to learn the sign to talk to Echo. That is like, who is actually in your community. From indigenous people, that's everything, right? Like who is actually, for us, like who is in our community is like who is here to actually put effort, like real work and effort into being part of us, like, right? Just like putting, I'm part of the LGBTQ plus community, or I'm part of the, the community of I'm part of the humanity family in your bio. I'm part of the, academic community. I'm part of the, YouTube video commentary community. I'm part of the, YouTube essay community. I'm part of the Hollywood movie consuming community. I'm part of the nerd community. I mean, how many of those people are down to put like hours and hours of work in and have your back when the shit goes down? How many of those people, right? But it's like but Kingpin doesn't, right? Kingpin, like that, and that's one of the things where it's like kind of like, he's still a white guy. He's not he wants to think of himself, right? Kingpin in Echo wants to think of himself as somebody who is like a father to her. I mean, he did like give her resources, right? He does get mad when he gets mad and like beats up people when they don't give her what she wants, right? And like he has this idea, or I mean, you don't know exactly what's in his head, but there's a lot of things in his head. But you can see how there's this idea that like there's a lot of families who put their children through fancy private schools with a lot of money and resources that they got through settler colonialism, like Kingpin. Does that But are you in community with your children if you still treat them like property, or if you don't put your own, like you're not really putting your personal time? Kingpin spends money to put a fancy device in his eye. That's like an Iron Man, augmented reality, computer sci-fi action nerd bullshit a little bit. That's you're like he puts a lens in that he gets a lens that he can put in Echo's eye. So when Kingpin talks, digital holographic hands make sign language for Echo. All right. At one point in the show, and there's a lot of non-indigenous people who have kids who spend a lot of money. They'll be like, "Oh, I love you so much. That's why I'll buy you an Xbox and all the Funko Pops you can possibly want. I'll pay for you to go to Disneyland with me, and we're gonna, we'll do things that I'll throw some money at you with all the stuff that I have accumulated based upon all the crimes that I've done and my ancestors have done, and that's enough, right? But when it comes to putting the time and actual care into, like, it's not. I mean, it takes you some time at work, right, to learn the sign language. He doesn't give a shit, right? He doesn't want to earn the community. He doesn't want to earn his own family members. But that's I think that's actually that's a very important thing. Whereas, like, even the roller skating rink guy, just random people in the neighborhood, they're not even like blood related doesn't that's the well that's I can't really open that one right now, but for Native Hawaiians like myself, people that are in your family, that's not just your child and the spouse that you like. That's not how it works. The people that are in your community, people that who you are, who raised you, who you raise, who you care for. Not this doesn't matter whose children, and it's really like everyone is cousin, bro, and sis in Hawaii. Like people call everyone is brother and sister and cousin, even people that you're not related to. And you treat people around, right, with the care. Like when people are in need, you drop everything and you help, right? I remember this happens all the time in Hawaii. There will be an emergency and the white people, they'll disappear. And the Hawaiians are the ones like putting out fires, like wildfires, right? Pulling together to stop eruptions, and the U.S. military poisoning our water, and Maui Lahaina fires, right? The white people are showing to take the resources out of our community hubs, right? I remember a car broke down one time on the North Shore of Oahu. Friends that I had known for a long time, actually a good example of the Kingpin white American versus, it's a criminal, but also, he's not the only one that's like that. All these Asian and white people or whiteified Asians who I had known for a long time were all walking back from a party, and I had just talked to them we're just hanging out for like an hour, and we're walking back from a party, and like my car, or how my car was like got stuck in like a sand area. There's like some sand that we had to park on, and we're having trouble getting the car out of there because we got a little bit dug in, and all these people I had known for years, they just walked by. They're wealthier. They're the kids who went to private school, the well raised kids. When they go to Christian churches, some of them, Asians, they go to church so that they can like escalate their career in the United States colonialist, crystal imperialist hellscape of capitalism. And like 3 Hawaiian people, like they were all playing with their family, like they're native Hawaiian people. They were just like playing with their family in the ocean. I had no idea who they are. They all came out, these 3 guys, like older, like 20, 30, 40s. I had no idea who they were. They just came out and they started helping. Like they didn't ask questions. They just started putting rocks under. One got a shovel, was trying to dig the thing out. Other ones were all pushing. The people that I had known from the city, they're not even all necessarily white, but they were white inside. And they acted in the rational self-interest. Americanized Asians and straight up Americans. They just walked on by. They said, "Oh, you're having car trouble?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, good luck, and then they just walked by. People I'd known forever. So it's like, and that's like an experience. That's an experience you might have as a native person. You'd be like, you might know people for a period of time, but you won't really know who they are until you really, you find things out about them, or intense experiences happen and you discover who's who. And that's a big part of Echo, where they talk about Echo as an indigenous character that's moving, is in two worlds. The New York versus the New York city world. In one sense, it's the New York City world versus the indigenous reservation world. In another sense, but it's also the indigenous reservation world also has the New York problems come to it. And there's one of the characters, which is Echo's what is Echo's the guy who runs the roller skating rink's name? I can't remember what his name is. Uncle Henry character. I'm really bad with remembering names of TV shows. Well, Uncle Henry is played by Chasky Spencer, right? And Uncle Henry's character, like, he kind of represents that where like, he is trying to his brother, right, Echo's dad, they both go to New York. They get caught up with the, they get caught up with the New York life, right? Which is, New York is the global capital of capitalism. It's the capital, and the gangsterism, is just a kind of a subset of that, which is, the internal control for arms and money. And, Kingpin is pushing cops out of the way because they all work for him to grab Echo at one point in the show, which is an important little bit that they added in there, because he controls them, and so it's another world. It's a different world, right? And in the indigenous world, there is real community, there is real family, right? In the city world, there's people in alleys, and they're getting beat up, or they're beating people up. There's individuals rationally pursuing their self-interest with temporary contractual obligations to others, right? Whether none of Kingpin's, people. I'm not saying everyone in New York is a mobster, but I mean, the United States is just the biggest global mafia. That's all it is. And they're trying to push their way through Palestine right now and doing genocide, backing Israel so they can maintain a global gangster racket, right? And trying to bomb Yemen to maintain global, the flow of their goods, right? Like the trains that come from Oklahoma to New York, it's not any different from the blood money and oil and resources coming through the Red Sea that the U.S. and UK are trying to blow up right now. It's the same system of plunder, murder, and theft, which is what Kingpin does and what the U.S. does, of a global imperialist, capitalist, colonialist system. And the indigenous are kind of caught in that because they're like, we're trying to not be that, but then also we're getting sucked into New York because we have to make money to survive in a world that has, destroyed our lifeways and our indigenous supportive systems, our ecological sustainability, and the collectivist, one might say communist support coexistence with nature, each other, and that had kept us fed, housed, clothed, and healed both spiritually and physically with medicine from plants for millennia. And so that system is disrupted now, so we have to go and work, like Chasky Spencer's character, with some of the colonialism the colonial capitalist disease that has been spread from Europe, along with smallpox and COVID-19. And so we're a little bit further in the show, so I'll be less polite. His character is like critiquing, is not critiquing, is the kind of like really upset with Echo, like, why would you bring the New York problems to our native reservation? Why would you do that? But then, like, you find out later that's, whoa, actually, buddy, you actually are working for this guy, You're somebody that is like moving in the you are a link in the supply chain of train cars full of weapons and dirty energy and all kind of other stuff, and it's kind of like, so that's actually kind of an interesting character too, because one of my native friends was talking about, they actually asked me, or she asked me, Cyberspook, could we do a stream just on indigenous capitalism? And it was kind of, it's not because that's a thing that is common to native people, but it's like there is a constant like a tractor beam that is trying to suck the native people into that activity as much as possible, to melting pot indigenous people and all people, but certainly indigenous people as one of them, into the capitalist system to just make, well, you'll just be brown Americans, right? That's what they try to do with my family, right? My mom had the Hawaiian beaten out of her body by the United States school system in Hawaii. Right? They physically broke her hands for speaking Hawaiian, and then they also made her believe that she was an American Catholic person. Like, so, I resonate a lot with the characters like this, because it's like, the United States, in its illegal genocidal occupation of Hawaii, tried to form me, and then they sent me to a private Catholic school, not unlike Kingpin sends Echo to private school, to try to get me the best education so that I could get the highest inside of the system of New York, the system of United States colonial capitalism, right? To be the biggest gangster. At one point, Kingpin says, Echo says, or Echo doesn't say it, but Kingpin says it, but it's what's implied. Kingpin says, you want an empire. You want an empire. I can give you an empire. Do you want to be a stormtrooper? Do you want to be a part of the unhealed descendants of the Roman trauma and the global system of inequality, exploitation, and destruction? I can give you that. All you have to do is be my daughter. Kingpin is trying to 60 scoop Echo in one way of saying it. Kingpin is trying to white adopt an indigenous kid into his empire, and then because she's a great fighter, she is very cunning, she is very talented, she is very skilled, she is very ruthless. She is like, to him, he believes she's like a daughter to him, right? So it's actually a good example in a one sense. Like, Echo is kind of like, this is how the United States, this is also how Rome worked, and this is definitely how the United States work and Canada work, which is to fold in as many people in, right? Recalibrate what counts as American and white to, make a bigger umbrella of your empire, of your stormtroopers, right? Of your henchmen, right? And then eventually those who will run it, right? This is Barack Obama. He's the first black emperor who killed and destroyed more. He did more, in my opinion. He bombed 10 times more around the world of people of color, the 90% of this planet, drone bombs, F-16 strikes than George Bush. He did 10 times more drone bombing than George Bush. He deported more people by far than George W. Bush. And he prevented the collapse of the United States colonial capitalist planetary empire, right? And so Echo is kind of like that. Echo is like when they try to pull you in, when the white supremacist colonial capitalist system tries to pull indigenous and all the world's people in. African people are indigenous to Africa. Asian people are indigenous to their Asian regions, and then suck them in and then form them into, melt them, assimilate them in, nurse them on violence. There's a scene where Kingpin, right, as I said, is beating the crap. There's an ice cream cones, a salesman, right, and Kingpin, who has had Echo's father killed, specifically to use Echo, right? Specifically to use Echo. This is what he doesn't talk about this. Like, I think he's just really good at being manipulative, right? He's really good at appearing very sincere a lot of the time, and sometimes I don't think he even realizes, right? But this is what it's like to be a Westerner, is to be so good at lying that you forget who you are, right? And there's a scene where Kingpin like again, like there's an ice cream salesman on the streets of New York. Echo comes and it's like wants the ice cream. She doesn't get one because and he's kind of mean. The ice cream he's not very nice to Echo, right? And she's deaf, she can't hear, and he's kind of like happy nice. But Kingpin comes and decides, well, I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go full Kingpin on this guy, and then basically like, beats the crap, like beats him so bad that like you can basically like hear all of the gallons of blood shooting out of the guy's body, right? And he tells Echo to go wait in the limousine, right? But Echo, surprise, isn't waiting, and she watches it happen, right? And then Echo goes and then runs over and kicks the guy on the ground. You think, oh, it's like Kate was like, oh no, don't be afraid. Like this, he's like, I didn't mean to show you all of that, right? But then Echo just goes like, runs up and then kicks the guy too, right? And then he's like, well, that's so right. So it's kind of like by this is actually important, right? Because it's kind of like there's this whole idea of blood quantum, and what makes you native is you're 25. If you don't meet your 25%, or you're in Hawaii, you deserve houselessness if you don't meet your 25 or 50% blood quantum. And even if you meet the blood quantum, the vast majority of Native Hawaiians like myself, we will be forever on a 70-year plus waiting list to never get. My parents will die on that waiting list. My parents are Native Hawaiians, right? They have percentage. They don't really believe themselves to be Hawaiians because the United States beat the Hawaiian out of my parents in school, and then brainwashed them through that system and the university as well, and everything else in Hawaii, right? But the reality is the West realizes that what makes you who you are isn't just your blood. Although this is a weird eugenicist Nazi justification, with Nazi meaning colonial, which is American justification for killing all the indigenous people, taking their land, right? Despoiling, and plundering 90% of this earth that's not Europe, based upon that idea, right? Of the purity and the greatness of the blood, the stock, as Winston Churchill would say, of the great European races, the white races. But at the same time, it's like that's you. But you understand that, who raises, nurtures, cares for, teaches children makes them who they are. They do realize that on some level, which makes them even more duplicitous, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't take Native children and try to raise them with white parents. If you believe that the degeneracy of the black and the indigenous races was inherent to them, then you wouldn't kidnap indigenous children like all over Canada, which they still do, by the way, and then forcefully insert IUDs into 9-year-olds, by the way. Canada still doing while Justin Trudeau says Israel's doing genocide, which 8 billion people have watched live stream on their TikTok feeds for the last 3 months. That's who runs Canada. Kidnap the children, and America does this as well in Hawaii. We're the number one. Native Hawaiians are the most removed from parents by child protective services. It's called child genocide services, and then given to white parents, right? So you wouldn't take Hawaiian children 4 times more per capita than any other people, and take indigenous children in the U.S. and in Canada, and black children also in the United States, and then give them to white parents to be raised that way, unless you thought that the whiteness and the colonialness and the imperial stormtrooper characteristics could be installed by the nurturing and not just inherently inside of the DNA, right? And anyway, I'm on a long. I know I'm on a long one, but it's this is important for people to understand that I don't think any. I've watched a few reviews of Echo, and they're very shallow. I don't find them very impressive, to be 100. I mean, it's like, is it a good show? I don't know. It just came out, but like I was watching some of them, and it's just like, mostly it's like I'm big mad that there's indigenous women that can kick butt, even though that's just like factually, non-refutable. I mean, it's just like these are things that happen, or it's like I don't know, I had problems with this plot, or it does have, it's like it has really good action sequences, and it has really good, and it does have good representation, and in the sense of it has a deaf character, and it has a disabled main character, it has indigenous people in it, and that's great, but just checking a bunch of check boxes, that's we don't just need, I don't particularly want, as I've made this point before, right? I don't want representation in the Empire. If you're gonna make a Moana that makes Hawaiians want to sign up to the U.S. military, don't make another Moana. If you're gonna make I can't speak for indigenous people in this Turtle Island or in North America, but I think if you're gonna make movies that represent Native Americans and make them want to join the U.S. Empire and go to make them, if you make movies that make young people want to sign up to go commit genocide in Yemen and Palestine in the U.S. Empire and join into that, then don't make those movies. The movies should be movies that are disrupting that identity, right? If you sign up and you want to go join the Kingpin, which is just to say to join the capitalist system, after you watch that movie, then don't make that movie. If you think the cops of the United States and the NYPD are good at the end of the movie, don't make that, or the TV show, don't make that show. We might as well not have it. The world doesn't. The reality is, this is something I've been thinking about a lot. Or think about it more. It's just that there is a lot of shows out there. There's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of it. If you want more content, there's always more to consume. There's more content put out on YouTube that are like rehashes, like Wes Anderson does The Matrix, or Christopher Nolan. What if Christopher Nolan filmed Star Wars while on acid, and there's 25 AI that can generate, there's like 50 million YouTubers that will make that video for you and make that entire movie for you, and then 25,000 video essays about those video essays about the video essays that were made about the AI generated video essay that was made before that, and then there's AI to generate those movies too now, right? There isn't like a shortage of content, and so and I think that and that having like the treatment of, or actually like how should I say that? It's kind of like this idea that we have the treatment of film, the treatment of TV, the treatment of cinema as like, obviously people need to relax, people need to unwind, etc., etc. But then there's a point at which you just become you're just hyper mediated, and it's like it's losing. You get in the same way you could be overeducated, or you could be miseducated, and part of that is by mass obsessively consuming information, data, content, film, TV, games, right? Simply like just almost like in a kind of junkie like way, and you're like, what is the purpose of this that you are consuming? Like what does this matter in the world that we're in? That's why I try with Silver Spoon Games. When I make games, I try to, as much as possible, make sure that what I'm making is actually impactful, relevant politically to the moment, not to 1980s, which is why I don't like a lot of cyberpunk, but like how is this like moving the world forward? As Kaleko Ka'eo, an indigenous professor who was arrested for speaking Hawaiian in 2019 in Hawaii. He was arrested for speaking Hawaiian, a college professor in Hawaii. As he said, politics is history made present, right? And the present politics presents history and the moment that we're in are fundamentally irrevocably intertwined, right? And that's how like Echo, I'm not the biggest fan of Marvel. I've made many a video. Speaking of content, I have a lot of hours, so I should be one to talk with all the hours of content. I don't spend a lot of time on it. I do spend like 1 or 2 hours making these videos a week. I just get up and talk. I don't edit the whole thing. But like whenever I do, I try to make sure that it's something that is all changing things in a positive way in the world now, as it relates to as I tried to tie in like what's happening in Palestine, what's happening. I can't make every video about that. What's the most important critical geostrategic topics in undoing the imperialist, colonialist, capitalist systems every single video. But I feel like that a lot of what there is a kind of nihilism, right, to viewing the world. There's a kind of nihilism. There is a kind of sickness, to viewing the world as entertainment, titillation, your oyster to be consumed, and to take its pearls out and string it around your neck, put it on your wall like a bunch of collectible game boxes or books or guitars or consumerist baubles. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's something, and even a lot of people would count themselves as left, or the educated, the intellectual world, certainly the Western world, the over resourced world. They used to call the indigenous kids that I work with, and the poor broke ghetto kids that I work with, the under-resourced youth. That was the politically correct term. But there is a problem with over-resourced youth and over-resourced adults, and over-resourced people who are adults but still act like children. And that, I think that's a real problem. And so that's why Echo, I think, is like, at least it's better than just it's not just entertainment, right? It is like speaking to a lot of the things that haven't been spoken to before. It gives a lot of visibility to things that need to be given visibility to. Now it does, particularly Native people's issues. But better than Echo is Reservation Dogs, in my opinion. And that's not the only one. There's Rutherford Falls. Oh, also Auntie Jana. That's what we forgot. Auntie Jana. What is her name? From Reservation Dogs. Jana Schmieding. Who is also works on another show called Rutherford Falls, and is going to be in lots of things, and is also a comedian. She also shows up in this Echo. She doesn't have a huge part, but I swear it's like they took the Reservation Dogs set and they just like threw lots of like CG trains and stunt people and Marvel budget, and then like it's almost like it just continued on into Echo. At times, I swear I feel like I'm watching a Lost Reservation Dogs season, in a positive way. But anyways, okay, so I kind of went off on a deep one at that moment. But coming back to how else it is centering indigenous people. So as I said, Echo talks to the ancestors. It's actually funnily enough, like Taika Waititi has this quote with regard to Reservation Dogs where he talks about like for white consumption, right? Or people, when he doesn't say that specifically, but people want to see us indigenous people playing the flutes on the mountain, right? Hugging the tree that is our grandmother, right? And like having long conversations with our ancestors, and like riding on top of the backs of whales, and right, and doing all this sacred stuff. And we do, that's part of us, but we're also just like regular human beings too. And so Reservation Dogs like kind of like those aspects of being an indigenous person are visible in Reservation Dogs. As a native person, like that, there's not really any show that makes me feel seen as much as like something like Res Dogs, or like Boy, just BOY is another Taika Waititi movie from way back, like over a decade ago. That's very similar, but it's in a Pacific indigenous perspective. But so there's not a lot of shows that are quite like that, but they can't all be like that. But this one, it does. You do have like talking to the ancestors, right? in the scenes where you have the ancient, you have the ancient, thousands of years ago, primordial kind of cosmological, the cosmogony, the story of the Choctaw people, which is, that it's all of that's like well done, and then it's how like the first woman, right, as Echo's ancestor, echoes through time, and then just one of the women that's Echo's ancestors is during the 1800s, like during the cowboy time, and there's a silent that was a really I thought that was really cool. There's like this one of the episodes opens with a silent movie. It's like a squarish aspect ratio. Echo Echo TV show, black and white, and I think is it in black and white? I can't remember if it was. Okay, no. But there's one episode that opens with it's like a silent movie. It almost looks like a Western. I'm not the best at searching these things out, and it's like Echo's like great grandma or someone is like under attack from it's almost like a cowboys and Indians show, but it's Echo's mom is like the main character, and not Echo's mom, one of Echo's ancestors, and she has to, but she's not allowed to fight because men do the fighting and the women, and there's definitely some, I don't know. Well, I shouldn't speak, but there are some parts that are like, this is not, some of this is like massaged for Western consumption, let's put it that way. But it's kind of like the men fight and the women. Prey has some moments like that. The men fight and the women do this, and Echo's like, but I want to do the fighting too. And if I it's like, men destroy life, women protect life, and then she's like, but what's the point of making life and men take life, women make life, and then the woman's like, what's the point of making life if I can't protect it, right? So this kind of, she goes off, and then later on in that silent movie kind of flashback to the past, like it's like a 1930s 1920s silent movie with the black screen with the text coming up in between the dialogue, in between the shots of the actors talking, really old school style. And so like that bit is it kind of ends with like, oh, and then but I will fight, and then she like goes and she takes out her gun and starts shooting, and silently beats all of the 1800s colonizer dudes, and saves the town, and yay, right? And and just like that happened. That's basically what Echo does, right? Echo like fights all of these dudes and kicks their butt, and so you can see where there's a long line of butt kicking indigenous women. And then the first woman was the healer that like also has the ability to heal. There's one of the scenes, there's like a bird that Echo shoots down, and and then one of Echo's ancestors or relatives has the ability to heal life and heal the animals that have been damaged, and also heal them like in terms of like emotionally and mentally and physically, as well as physically, and so all of these talents and skills and abilities and history have all been like passed through time. That scene is so much like the scene in Res Dogs. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, is it called Ancestors? Okay, in season 3 of Reservation Dogs, there's a scene that echoes the scene from Echo, where all of the ancestors, of the future. One of these kids in the reservation that is like troubled and is thinking of going to California. See, in Echo, it's New York, right? It's like we'll go east to colonizer world in New York, and then in Res Dogs we'll go west to California colonizer world. I mean, it's supposed to be to say LA and New York is the same place. Let's be real. Everybody's a bunch of dickheads. They spend $2,000 on their suits or more, and they're constantly flying on planes trying to blow the world up. Right? Same place. One of them does more of Wall Street. One of them does more imperial propaganda in Hollywood. But anyways, so the in Res Dogs, there's a scene where Willie Jack, who is I'm not sure if Willie Jack is not. I don't think it's ever said that Willie Jack is like Two Spirit specifically. Willie Jack is definitely like tomboyish in the show, and then Alora Denan, who is played by Devery Jacobs, is like the more like, at least I forget if it's ever explicitly stated, but it's more like the femme presenting indigenous character, and then there's Willie Jack is not. Is more is more not necessarily non-binary, but is somebody who is certainly from Western's perspective, it wouldn't be considered as you are definitely a girl. You're like will be viewed more as a quote unquote tomboy, or non-binary person, depending on what age of Western person you ask. Anyways, so Willie Jack is trying to learn to be. Willie Jack isn't sure where she's going to move on and what she's going to be in her life, right? And so her one of her or her aunt is in jail, and her aunt is also in jail, and is kind of lost in her own life, right? And there's a scene where the aunt's ancestors, which is all of these people in the background, all of the indigenous women who have come through the ages, right? And they're like, you have to impart on, your niece is lost. You have to help her. You have to teach. You have to guide her on through into her life, also into becoming the healer in the, of the reservation, right? Because the current healer is old. He's not doing so well in health, and so somebody has to carry that forward, right? And so there's a scene with the ancestors where and it's like that's why it really feels like this is like somebody. I don't want to say that somebody watched Res Dogs and just said put all of that in Echo, but it's like there's a scene that's like so much like this, but with a lot more money to have glowing blue avatar ink on the face and CG, ethereal, cosmic time, with light bending and, computer generated rivers of light and stuff. They don't have the level of the budget in the Res Dogs. And it's not a comic book show, right? But there are several, this is one of those scenes where it's this let me see if I can get the one. Echo. I don't know if I'll be able to get it. I know I keep saying that. Oh, well, this is one of them. That's not exactly the one I wanted, but here, this one. No, this is the one at the powwow. Yeah. But there's several scenes like that where where the history comes forward through the current generation, and you see the interconnectedness for Native people. It's like our ancestors and our history that the United States and the colonial world has tried to eradicate for a long time. They're still trying, by the way. That's what I spend most of my days doing, is fighting with people all over the world, mostly from the United States, Canada, and the Western world, to stop them from destroying us. The United States continues to punish children for speaking Hawaiian in schools. The United States is defunding all of our schools. I was just fighting with some white guy with a Christian cross and a Hawaiian flag in his bio. I had to just tell him off right before I started the stream, by the way. So this is an ongoing process, right? And it's kind of this is the way, as a Native person, this is the way as a Kanaka Maoli Native Hawaiian, it's not I'm every second of the day I'm talking to my ancestor. That's where Reservation Dogs really shines, because it kind of people want to see us as kind of this sacred like waxed Indian that they can come and look at and feel spiritual and then move on, like it's a theme park, right? Like Hawaii native people are, each native person is like Tonto in the main character movie of white man's life, you know? And that's just not true, not fair, and that is the sickness of Western white culture. That's another symptom, you know? And native people, we have our whole entire life there, you know? And yes, we have our ancestors that we have to learn about, that the US keeps trying to cut us off from, that we have to try to reconnect to. Yes, we have like connection to the natural world in ways that white people can't begin to comprehend. Knowledge, understanding, and real science that they haven't. It's not that they fully can't, it's just that they don't make a lot of effort to, and they don't care to approach the world except as an inanimate object to consume, including the non-humans, right? As Israel calls, and the US and Europe and Canada support them in calling the human animals. As Germany attacks South Africa for calling out the basic lack of treating humans, Palestinians, like the humans that they are, right? And so this desire to kind of commodify everyone outside of the individual, and this is a lot of the reason why white men, nerds in particular, but not exclusively, get mad when there is a non-white man main character, right? Because the natural order of things, right? The universality and the normalizing and the invisibilizing of whiteness as everything, and the natural state is to be a white American, or if you're in Britain, a white British. But America would like everyone, including the Europeans, to be white Americans, which is to say healthcare-less, impoverished, and having all their pipelines blown up, and their economy collapsing to make to pull them into the American primacy black hole. But the reality is, you know, like the world is not made up of a handful of privileged white American men and a bunch of other set pieces for them. Each of the peoples are full entire peoples whose complete identities, it should be noted, cannot be consumed. You can never know. You will never know everything it is to be an indigenous person. You know, there is a limit to what you can know, and that is going to be that's really upsetting when white people have to hear that. When Western people and westernized and whiteified people have to hear that. Right? There will be things about Hawaiian culture which you will not know. There will be things about indigenous culture that you will not know. Yet you must respect those native Choctaw people, native Hawaiian people, Maori people, native Anishinaabe, native Dakota and Blackfoot, etc. people, and those native Palestinian people, and those native Yemen people. They have many amazing things that you will never understand. You don't get it, that you will not intimidate them. There's one thing that you don't get. You will not intimidate them by dropping some bombs on them. In fact, you only unite them further, and just they're happy, you know. And that's something that, but we don't see a lot of understanding there, right? When I see other people in the global South and other indigenous people, it's like we don't understand everything, but we try our best to understand, at least what we can about other cultures. But the white culture is, I don't need to understand anything about you. I will just turn you into whatever. I will turn you into Pocahontas. I will turn you into Lilo and Stitch. I will turn you into Blue Hawaii. And I will turn you into the terrorist that Arnold Schwarzenegger fights in a 1990s action movie called True Lies. I will turn you into Liam Neeson fodder. If you're Russian, I will turn you into, whatever, Red Dawn enemies if I want to fight you. If you're China, North Korea, or some, right? There's a lack of willingness to try even to understand these other cultures. And so outside of the universal white man perspective. And so Echo is like, at least it's and that you can see it online. When you go online, you're gonna see who's frustrated. It's the same people that are not really frustrated. They're upset. They're mad that the natural order of the world isn't there, right? And they will, I guess, die mad, and they might die mad under the gun of a Russian, a Chinese, or possibly a Yemen rifle. So that's too bad. But anyway, now I'm going way off, but But I think so like those scenes where the ancestors come through um are really I thought those really well done. It's really important. It's also important to acknowledge. There's also the other ones I really like. There's another one of those ancestors is they're playing that game, and I don't. It looks kind of like lacrosse, but it's not. As far as I know. It's a game that is used. It has a small object, and it has the natives are playing that. It has a stick, right, and then it has a stick with a kind of cup at the end, and they're trying to catch this. I'm not sure if it's a rock or it's some kind of small round object, and they're trying to get it, and they have to get it between the two goalposts at the end, either end of a field. And what I like, and obviously you see what number one. This is like where some like lacrosse is based on a game, right, that indigenous people played before the French got there. And then you also have in that scene, you see there's a huge cities in what is now called Oklahoma State, but you see these really big gathering places, and you see these huge structures, right? Which because that's one of the narratives of the United States that has been for a long time, which is that Native peoples didn't build anything significant. There was nothing here before us. It was all just terra nullius, right? It was just empty, open space, and so at least in Echo, you get to see, no, indigenous peoples of Turtle Island or Native Americans had cities, had like huge events with thousands, and it's like at least 100,000 people probably in that area. They had meetings of nations from all across the continent. And also the game is, it was a way to help decide, political conflicts, right? So it's kind of like, instead of fighting war, you would have this, some African peoples, they have like ritual, like in Wakanda, in Black Panther, the history of ritual combat being a part of different African people's history comes out, right? And in Echo, you have the game that they're playing is part of settling differences without needless bloodshed, right? Which is that is a thing in the history. In Hawaii, we had other things. There's actually a game kind of like Go, Konane, which is you play with white and black stones. It's kind of like, it's like the game of Go, the Chinese game of Go. It's part of actually the ancestry from Asia to the Pacific that we also share. But then there's other ways of solving problems, outside of just fighting wars, because that's not the best way to solve problems. The U.S. and the U.K., everything is, let's throw an aircraft carrier at it. Let's throw another billion trillions of dollars of weapons and then see if that solves it, right? We're committing genocide on TV with hospitals and children being blown up in Palestine for our little unhinged Nazi settler colony, Israel, and we want to keep doing genocide. Let's just throw some more aircraft carriers and bomb people with F-16s in Yemen, right? That's the solution today. And so, but anyway, so I like that scene a lot. There's more scenes that I like in this show than I have time to discuss. Obviously on the negative side, we did not watch this on the Disney. Don't get a Disney Plus just to watch this thing. If you can watch it anywhere other than that, because what Disney is a participant in, unfortunately, which is obviously what I was just talking about. Like McDonald's, actually anything you can buy in the West, including the electricity that you're probably running on, it all supports genocide, because it supports the U.S. and it supports the West and its empire, and it's all genocidal. So let's be real. but specifically McDonald's and Disney was one that was marked for boycott. So don't if you can get we watched this in a place that it was legitimate to watch it on. It was not Disney Plus. You gotta watch what you say. You don't want to violate the TOS on this thing. But but that is one thing. I wish it's kind of like the problems that Echo's uncle has. It's like you have to make money you need money to get your show made, and but the people who have the money and the networks to produce and distribute your show, these people are working with the United States Empire and the genocidal Israel. And so you gotta try. But I mean, I'm still firmly of the belief that we should try to have economic sovereignty. Sometimes dual power structure is described. Indigenous people, we need to have as much as possible economic sovereignty to pull away from the black hole that is the kingpin New York money force, the New York the call of the gangsters that tries to get your children to leave your reservation and go to leave your native land and go to California, or leave your native land to go to New York City, to make it big, and try to build as much internal as non-capitalist as possible economic structures, and you do need to develop, right? But you want to do that in the healthiest way, that you don't give up control, and you don't give up your voice, you don't give up your stories as much to these external forces, because that's how they control, right? It's capitalism controls by making sure that the your rent and your housing and your food and everything else is in their grasp, right? And that's how the kingpin is the kingpin. That's how in the United States and the Wall Street and the oligarchs behind the United States, that's how they're the global kingpin, right? And so it's kind of like refusing to accept being nurtured by the kingpin as much as you can, and that as Echo has to finally choose, because at one point it's like you can either be, because she has family, right, in her native reservation, but then she also was raised by the kingpin in the city, right? And wealth and power and control and her empire could be had if Kingpin says, all you have to do is come with me back to New York, be my lieutenant, and you will have the empire, right? And so she has to choose, are you going to do that? It's like a more intense reservation doctrine, or are you going to stay with your people, and are you going to support your people? But you can't do, at one point it's like you cannot do both, because a lot of times people will be, the contradictions are not always so starkly revealed, right? But so that's the thing. That's one aspect that I like about it, is that it kind of you kind of see each of Echo's two families, right? Her two worlds, and she's part of her is for a lot of the show is I'm just coming back. She rides her motorcycle, comes all the way back, right, from New York all the way to Oklahoma, and she's like, I'm just here to do business, so I'm gonna get in and I'm gonna get out, right? So she's kind of fooling herself into being like, I can have my native family and then also have my empire, right? I can do my indigenous collective, communistic ways of living, and also do capitalism in New York. I can walk these two, and I can have it all. I can have my cake and eat it too, kind of, right? And then it's kind of like, but then now you're endangering people. Now you're breaking the hearts of people that you care about. And now you're not. Is this really what you want? And it's difficult, right? When you've been raised a stormtrooper in the Empire, as many indigenous people are. For me, there are many points like that where it's like, well, as I said, there's a point where I could go to New York City, literally. I graduated with a computer science degree. I was pretty good at programming. There was not a lot of jobs around, and it was like, hey, go to New York City, program algorithms for these really fast trading machines, and you can make a lot of money. I know people did that. Hey, go to California. Work for one of these big tech companies. There's a lot of money. You have computer skills. You can make a lot of money doing that. Hey, join the U.S. military. Program the F-16s. Work on these new swarming drones. That we can go. You're gonna bring freedom and democracy to the Middle East and to Palestine. When you program that, Afghanistan will be liberated by your programming, right? You make a lot of money doing that. Well, you used to. Now you can, be food insecure working for the U.S. military. And go. You're selling off the F-16 missiles that you're supposed to launch into Yemen. 2 days yesterday. In order to pay for your food and healthcare as an American Air Force pilot. Very sad. That's why the U.S. can't meet its recruitment targets. But back in the day, when America had any money to buy off all of the world's population, that was the choice. It was like, and it seems like, I'll work for Lockheed Martin and I'll come back and be a Native Hawaiian. I can do both. I'll go to New York City, I'll make $3 million trading, and then I'll come back and be a Native Hawaiian. This is a real choice that people have to face all the time. Sometimes, different in the same day, you might be like half in one brain and half out of it. You'd be like, I can make more money if I made this choice, and then if I use AI generated software to make all these ads for my small indigenous business, and that would really help us out. If I use AI generated mythology, AI generated art, which screws over artists, writers, and storytellers, and also kind of puts white supremacist AI, which is made by a literal Zionist. That's the open AI leader. Unfortunately, he said the Palestinians don't deserve to exist and kill them all. And if I use OpenAI to make native storytelling really fast and a lot of it, this will help teach native kids. But it's like, but now and it's like, so, and it's hard every moment of the day, right? You'd be like, you're like, well, but if I trade that piece, but if I go to New York and work with the kingpin on that, what, is that really going to impact and benefit our native community? How is that going to cause problems for our native community? When New York calls on the phone and they say, hey, I want to talk to you. In fact, I'm coming to your reservation. I'm coming to your native home, right? That's what happens. Right? Kingpin comes to Oklahoma, and then shit really hits the fan, right? So you think, so that's, but then, I mean, obviously, I'm not saying that there is not really like the answer to that, like obviously, except continue anti-colonial, anti-capitalist action and organization and education and a struggle through any and all means necessary. But in everyday life, you still have to like pay your bills and such, right? And so we have to constantly be struggling with that. So anyway, so that's how like I feel like Echo is a really it is really resounding with a lot of people, right? With for Native people, I mean for me, I don't know how Native people are also not, as I said, not a monolith, and they have their own opinions, and some of them may be like, oh my god, I couldn't stand this movie. I've talked to many of my Native, I have multiple Native circles. I've talked to several of them. I told Holly we have to watch this because all my Native friends on the indigenous game desk, friends, they're all talking about it. So I can't. I'm gonna get all spoiled if I don't watch this show. Anyway, but yeah, that's Echo, and I think it is a really resonant show. I want like I said, I don't really want. I would prefer indigenous owned and operated cooperative businesses like Silver Spoon Games to make the content, the movies, the games, the TV shows, and everything else, if at all possible. I know that we don't have the resources at present to independently do that, right? At the scale of something like this. I mean, even like Taika Waititi and Sterling Harjo co-produced Reservation Dogs. But at the same time, it's kind of like so we have to just we have to try our best with what we have. But I do want to like one thing is if people do at least watch the show, ideally not by subscribing to Disney Plus, but if you can somehow watch the show, then it increases the chance like a lot of people really are into this, right? Then maybe they'll make more of them because it would be good to have more of them in whatever context, right? um, you know, because if the only thing is, oh, nobody likes that show, nobody watched that show, and all of the consumers, right? And by consumers I mean the white nerd dudes who are all mad and just like saying this is the worst show ever because there's a women indigenous hero and it's, you know, there's a native girl hero and it's illogical and irrational that she could fight good like that and beat up guys. If that's the only voices, the average, let's be real, the YouTube audience is, you know, a white petty bourgeois dude, average Western person. That's who's the average, and that's a lot of the voice though. That's screaming, oh my god. The people who consume Marvel movies, that's the, you know, that's the average audience. It seems like that's the loudest, right? And if all we hear is, oh, Echo is terrible, it's the worst, it's not, it's a mess, it's not, it doesn't make any sense, it's irrational, it's all Mary Sue's, and then nobody's watching it, then then it's like, oh well, how, if we want to make more in the future, it's kind of like, you know, we don't want that to be like, we don't want the incorrect colonial lies to be that which resounds loudest, you know. We don't want the Star Spangled Drumbeat to be the one that everyone's hearing. Anyways, I have been talking about this for a while, so I think we'll have to just wrap it up. But yeah, so do check it out, and don't forget, everything that we do here is supported by the sales of you can support us directly through Ko-Fi at ko-fi.com/silverspook. You can also help us out at patreon.com to give us ongoing support. And when you become a Silver Spook Patreon member, you also get access to the Silver Spook Discord, the Silver Spook behind the scenes of what we're working on at the Native Hawaiian run, anti-colonial, anti-capitalist Silver Spook Cooperative. And also, you get access to the Silver Spook University. And Silver Spook University is, I was going to do a video on education this week, but I decided maybe I'll wait a little bit for that because I want to talk about Echo. Just because of the time of the release and try to get some positive press out for it. And Silver Spook University, though, is an indigenous left education that combines decolonized history, current struggles, imagined futures, and cultural analysis from a Native Hawaiian activist, educator, and science fiction writer. That's my perspective. But it is the purpose is because if you don't know what you need to know today, but you know that your public and even private schools in the United States are not really teaching everything in terms, especially in terms of history, in terms of economics, in terms of analysis. And if your schools are increasingly run by right-wing entities they're removing books from libraries, they're coming after any teachers that even talk about racism or the history of the United States and the colonialism, and that make that make white people uncomfortable. And there's a lot of discomfort that needs to be had to truly get educated in a place that is lots of problems historically and presently. And so this Silver Spook University is a resource of all kind of different history, which would be like social studies for kids of different ages, history, social studies, economic education, cultural, like world political education, and many things, including tons and tons of my threads. There's like over 1,000 hours of total content. These are the social media threads. A lot of it focuses on Hawaii because that's where I'm from, but not all of it. And the true history of Hawaii is very important to this. True history of Africa, true history of Asia, U.S. Turtle Island focused, Pacific focused, economics, true economics, race and gender, and analysis of the West in the Imperium, artificial intelligence, social media, like future in tech, because I also, I work in tech, I work in science fiction, so a lot of this is about where we're headed going forward, and discussions of the future from indigenous perspectives. And there's lots and lots and lots of other content here. And so when you become a Patreon member, you also get access to the Silver Spook University. It's not like we don't give you a degree when you get out. It's just like a for people, and this is not the be all end all of what you need to know. It's just like things that the United States, Canada, and Western countries' education systems will not teach you, including their universities, with the exception of people that are going rogue within the universities. which are also having witch hunts and kind of McCarthyite cleansing, including teaching anything about Palestine. Apparently, that's true. Is not allowable. In fact, that's anti-Semitic, right? So this is just a way for people to get the education that if you don't know what to do, what you should teach your kids, and also what you should teach yourself, then this is just kind of like something that anyone can use to access and get access and get that. Having a library, having the internet gives you access to all this information, right? So this is kind of like, but having, it's like the Library of Babel, having everything that's ever been created also means you have nothing, because you don't know what you need to know. You don't know what you need to know, right? You don't know really. So having the internet, you can get access to almost anything, but knowing what exactly you need to be knowing at this time is something that we're trying to help people with. And what of everything that your kids could learn, what should they learn, right? From a perspective of somebody who's been in this struggle for some time. Anyways, so that's Silverspoon University. You can also support us through support at. You can get the game Neofeud, which is a cyberpunk adventure game, a retro adventure science fictional game created over 2.5 years doing the writing, music, art, and programming myself. So I talk about economic sovereignty and control over our stories, right, and over our entertainment and over our games. So everything
That's
on Silverspoon
reality, that is.
and on everything at Silverspoon games. I don't know about Marvel.
Citizens.
Well, I can tell you that Marvel is definitely not fully controlled.
Humans are sentient persons by
All of this
default,
is controlled
ma'am.
by,
They have personhood by
native,
heredity.
There
Silverspoon
are
properties,
thousands
native
upon
properties.
thousands of
We have no
overqualified slum dwellers.
bosses
You
or
are
landlords
my
here. And
peon. Don't you get
no
it?
investors here.
This
there's
wasn't
no
a job.
CEOs.
It was always just an
And
excommunication
all the decisions
sentence.
are democratically made. At the
We're
Silverspoon
pawns in a
property.
feud bigger than we can imagine.
So if you want to support us, grab the game.
Turn
and you
the
can also,
cogs of the machine
you can
before
also
Leviathan
get the game
grinds you
on
up
itch.io
and
for
swallows
Windows
you
and,
in.
and for Linux if you don't have Windows. And if you don't like using Steam, you can also get Neofeud on itch.io, and it's also on sale there. And you can also get other games such as Decolonators, which is about kicking capitalist colonizer butts out of your sovereign country. Decolonators is kind of like Echo. You have like there's a women fighter main character just kicks a lot of ass. Like the whole Decolonators is even like more thoroughly just kicking all of the ass, like all the ass. Indigenous Star is another game that is based in the world of Neofeud 1 and Neofeud 2, and it is also like about a native science fictional perspective on our current struggles, but through a kind of more 2001: A Space Odyssey / Star Trek vibe. Pigeon with Gun and There's Woman, which is a book by Holly, who was raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity, and it is a book that is critiquing right-wing conservative Protestant Christianity through the story in the Bible told from Mary's perspective. You can follow at Silverspoon Games at octodon.social, at Silverspoon Games at mastodon.social, and you can follow on Twitter at Silverspoon Guy, Silverspoon Games at minus the E in silver for the games related stuff. Don't forget, you can follow Holly. Holly is, of course, wearing masks because that's important. Community care includes masking to prevent the population from getting sick, prevent your comrades from getting sick and disabled, so that they can keep doing actions. Because if they're too disabled, too dead, or too sick to do actions, and also they have too much brain fog or brain damage to remember the education, and right, there's a lot of education that we need to do. And if COVID causes multiple different types of brain damage that reduces your ability to remember information and use that information. And so how are you going to do any radical collective action if you can't even remember that? So anyway, so that's why we always encourage masking here as well, as we have in multiple videos over the course of the last years. But Holly is also, of course, wife and partner here at the Silverspoon Cooperative, producer and manager with the Kate Nix Twitch stream, music and variety show, parent and educator for Native Hawaiian children here as well, writer, educator, mask wearer, and sharing important selfies. Also, I just want to say that the director, Sydney Freeland, is indigenous and a trans person, and I myself am a Mahu person, which is non-binary / trans, and it's a queer indigenous third gender identity. And although mine manifests more in the gender fluidity but so that's another way that I support the Echo in the show. Anyways, and certainly the director in making more shows like that. So follow Holly, and don't forget you can also follow Terminus Cyberstar, which is a cyberpunk RPG that I am the content director and lead writer of. As I said, like a lot of my day is making games, education, and all these things, but I also make games that are also entertainment, but also activism and education at the same time. And thanks very much to all the people who have been on who support us. And I think we have added some new Patreon supporters, so let me just quickly throw you up into that. Let's see here. Let's see here. Jordan Banks and Jesse Ball. Okay. Okay, I gotta do it now, otherwise I won't remember it. Okay, so okay, there you go. So thanks to all of our new patrons, Jordan Banks and Jesse Ball, for your support, and everyone else who continues to support us. Without your support, it does become very difficult for us to keep doing this work. So yeah, thanks so much, and until next time, keep your mirror shades polished, be excellent to each other. Keep your echo. Keep your, maybe learn some sign language. You might need it in case your butt gets kicked by Echo. And